Hello, it's Leslie here again. Today I want to talk about how you can study more than one language at the same time. So I've taken the main piece of advice from someone else who speaks, I don't know, 7 or 8 languages or something. And that person recommends studying each language for 2 years and then moving on to the next language. So I tried to study well, first off, I should say I prioritized my languages and really tried to do that and just study one at a time. And when I broke my own rule and started studying a bit of, say, Italian at the same time as Russian, I started mixing up the words. And I went to italki and really made a bit of a fool of myself because Italian words came out when I wanted Russian words to come out and vice versa. So Uh, so yeah, I thought from that point on, I thought really, they've got to be more separate. So I really tried to separate them in time. So I'd been studying Russian for at least 1 year before I started learning Italian, and I've been studying Italian for about over a year before studying any other languages. So I'm also starting to study a little bit of Finnish at the moment for 2 or 3 months. And okay, so the main thing I'll say to you is to separate them by as long as possible. 1 or 2 years. And but if you can't do that and you want to try and do it all together, um, what I will say is this: that during the language learning journey, there's various phases. First, you look at how to read the alphabet, and then the pronunciation, and then you learn some nouns and verbs and um, pronouns, all these sort of things. What I would do is I'd separate those. So if you're learning, say, Italian pronouns, don't be learning some other pronouns in another language because then I think you'll be more likely to mix them up. So um, I hope that kind of makes sense. So learn the nouns in one language while you're learning maybe the pronunciation in another language. Or, you know, if you're learning verbs in one language, maybe you'll be by that time at a really advanced stage in the other language and you'll just be listening to something more like not revision but just maintaining it. So, for example, um, yeah, I'm having to juggle several languages now. Russian, Italian, Spanish is very like old. I studied that a long time ago, and I'm starting to learn a bit of Finnish. And after the Finnish, I've actually got quite a long way with Finnish, and I'll make a separate video about that. Why I'm learning that. What I wanted to say though is, say, for example, after Finnish, I'll be doing Japanese. So I've actually, in the last year, I've been learning the Japanese alphabets because that's a visual thing, and it doesn't really affect me learning Italian. So on my desktop, every new day that comes, every new day there's a new character that comes up that I see on my main computer, and I don't think that's not really. I'm not going to really confuse that with anything. So I've been doing that. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think you're going to run into any troubles if you want to learn a foreign script and you're learning something else at the same time. Um, yeah, the other thing, so I'll say that my languages are kind of staggered in a sense that the most studied one of mine is Spanish, and then it's probably Italian. Sorry, then it's probably Russian. I started Russian after Spanish, and I'm at the stage there where I finished all the courses, and I'm just listening to series, and I've ordered a few books, and so it's really just picking up some of the vocabulary that I've missed, just by learning it on my own. So then after that, Italian, like I said, I definitely made a mistake trying to learn the pronouns together at the same time. So I'd keep those separate. Because, if you make a mistake, if you say confuse an Italian word for a Spanish word, it's not such a big deal. But if you confuse the pronouns, if you confuse he and she and they and you're saying them in another language, it's really not good. So the other thing I'll say is I wouldn't study, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't study two very similar languages at the same time, which may be counterintuitive. I wouldn't study Spanish and Italian at the same time because you end up mixing them up. So I would do just, if you are going to study two at once, just choose vastly different languages like maybe Arabic or something else, or Korean or whatever, because otherwise you have run the risk of blending them into one another, melding them into one another, which is not good. So yeah, I wouldn't be. The other thing is the numbers. Don't be studying the numbers together. Just try and separate them, separate the learning bits, so that when you're learning the numbers of one, you're learning, I don't know, conjunctions or something in another language, or adverbs, or when you're learning the adverbs in one, I was going to say when you're learning the adverbs in one, do the adjectives in other, but they're a bit similar. So what I'd suggest mostly is if there's so completely different tasks, like in the Russian I'm at the listening phase. In the Italian I'm at the end of the B1 or B2 phase, like at the end of my courses. And then in Finnish I'm at a beginner level. And in Japanese I'm just studying the alphabet, the visual. So I'll make a separate video of how you can use one language to study another one. So for example, it might be learning Japanese in Russian or something like that, and what I think about that. I'll make a separate video about that. But I would definitely try and separate the languages by a minimum of like 6 weeks or even 3 weeks. Just don't start doing them on the same day. The longer you can leave them apart, I think the better. I know it's hard because you have to be patient. You might want to learn several languages. You have to be really patient and just go, well, I'm going to leave that one for now. I'm going to leave it. And that's why I try and prioritize the ones that I really want to learn, and really think about which ones do I definitely want to learn. I'll just mention here too that I do study the languages every day, pretty much all of them, and I'm actually thinking of doing it every other day on some languages. So maybe that will be 2 or 3 on one day and the other 2 or 3 on the other day, because it's getting a bit too much. But what I try and do as well is I've told you about separating them in time, kind of thing. But I do my study in the evening, right? After it's gone dark, then I go and do my study. So I don't do it in the morning, I do it in the evening. I do it instead of in sort of entertainment where people might watch television or read a book after going to work. I sit down and do that as my sort of entertainment thing. So, what I tend to do is the newer languages first, while my brain's still a bit fresh. The exception is if I really don't feel like doing one, I won't do it. If I don't enjoy it, I won't do it. So, I try and do the ones that require the most mental effort first, and then after that, the ones that I'm intermediate, and then sort of as a reward, I will do, for example, I'm at the stage in Russian where I'm watching television series. I'll do that at the very end as a kind of a reward because it does feel like that. So that's how I'm doing it. I'll mention here too a tip of mine that I haven't mentioned before. I'll probably make a separate video about this. What I do is I have one computer in one language. I set it. So for example, this computer that I'm doing this recording on now is in Italian. My laptop is in Russian. And my smartphone is in Russian. My media center computer that's just a shitty desktop, that's in Spanish, because I rarely study Spanish anymore. So that's what I do. I try and put all my devices into different languages. Not so much to separate them, just as an extra way to get some study. Well, I hope these tips have helped you. I've been studying every day pretty much. Yes, definitely every day. Even though I'm not posting videos, I'm there. I usually try and study a absolute minimum of 5 minutes per language, if it's very tedious. Usually that once I start, it becomes okay, so it ends up going to 10 or 20 minutes per language. But I really just try and have a good habit of doing that. Even if I don't feel like it, I'll just think, well, I'll do 5 minutes. And then it becomes 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So that all adds up to probably 1 hour or more. And so during this time, I've been studying quite a lot, actually. So I think that's all I'm going to say this time. So, yes. Nakamin!